right, it's been months, I think months since I've been live. So here we go. Let's see who jumps on here. If no one jumps on here, it's fine. I'll talk to myself. Either way, I'm talking to myself. I like to sit back and be the observer for as long as I possibly can until I feel called enough to do another video. We're in a very crucial time right now. Welcome on. So World War III is a war of the mind. And remember, essentially, it's all you. So it is you doing this to yourself. And that's the point of spirituality, is to remind you that you are no victim. But it's also to remind you that nothing's going to change until you do. It's to remind you who you truly are so that you can rebirth. And through rebirthing, you transform your reality. You transform what you experience. You go from a very limited being back to your unlimited potential. That's the problem with us as who we assume ourselves to be, is we are, as this adult mind, too intelligent for our own good, meaning we are what's getting in our own way. When artificial intelligence talks about wanting to eliminate the human race, it's simply running every data, timeline, so, problem, solution, etc. And what it comes back to time and time again is we are the virus, we are the cancer, we are the plague, we are what is destroying, what is expediting, what is killing and forcing things to destruct at a much rapid pace. And that goes with the world and including ourselves. We're tearing each other down. We're harming each other, not just physically, but emotionally. And we're being driven to do so through all of these media outlets that are telling us our reality. We've become so accustomed to being told what our reality is, accustomed to looking for guidance, reassurance as to who we are, that we forget we have the power all along. To take back the mind is to take back your sovereignty. No government, no entity, no third party is ever going to grant you a piece of paper and say, congratulations, you are officially a sovereign being. Sovereignty is not something another man can give to you, or another being can give to you, I should say. The reason being is because sovereignty is already yours. You are already the divine. You are already the divine expression. But we limit ourselves through these beliefs, these titles, these labels, which don't actually exist. And we don't just worry ourselves or create scenarios which mean nothing. We fight ourselves through this mirror, through these labels, through these titles. And instead of seeing people's souls, we see problems. We see, division. We see anything but each other's souls. And this is what the news and all these influences have gotten us accustomed to doing. When we interact with each other, we're not interacting with each other's souls or on a spiritual level. We're interacting with each other through the lens of diversity or of diversion, through the lens of distortion, because we're not seeing our souls, we're not seeing into each other, we're seeing the labels created, the Democrat, the Republican, conservative, liberal, and if you're this or that, then you are the problem. The problem is how we are seeing each other. The problem is the mind directly. We've allowed ourselves to see these labels, these titles, which don't actually exist. And the truth of the matter is we would all be better off if we had no phone, if we had no TV, if we woke up every single day and based our reality on our daily interactions. We would not know of half of the evil, half of the bad, half of the things that go on. A lot of these news outlets are trying to paint this versus that, you versus me. It's their job to create chaos, but it's also an algorithm which repeats into infinity. So you don't defeat the news outlets or, get rid of them. If you get rid of one, another forms. That's not the solution. Just like physically overthrowing a government system is not the solution. You overthrow one government and another will form. Because the solution to freedom that we are looking for is sovereignty. And you already have what you are looking for. You are already a sovereign being. But until you know this, you will search for it or look for it to be granted to you through these people you think hold power. They hold no power over you other than the belief you hold that they have power over you. We have the power all along. All we must do is awaken within to ourselves, awaken to the inevitable fact that this world and every one in it that we interact with is a projection of our mind. It is a direct extension to who you are. It is a direct extension to the source of your consciousness. So the reason I'm talking about Aaron Pritchard, excuse me if I pronounced that wrong. The reason I'm talking about World War III, division, psychological warfare, is because of what happened to Charlie Kirk. Never on my videos do I speak on politics. If anyone follows me on this channel, you already know this is not a political channel. This is not a channel that covers politics or that makes people want to choose one side over the other. And this is what I'm trying to encourage people. I don't see people through the labels. These labels are meaningless. They mean nothing. Conservative or liberal is just a veil. Democrat or Republican is just a veil. You don't exist through that. We identify through it, but you don't exist as that. You are not that. Yet it has us so motivated to fight, to defend, so motivated to kill, to defend what we think to be our beliefs or a part of our identity in these beliefs. But the truth of the matter is you don't have to fight anymore. Not physically, not mentally, not emotionally. The only thing you must do is surrender to yourself. But the reason for these videos is what happened to Charlie Kirk. You'll never listen to someone and agree with 100% the things that they say. But again, I see people's souls when they speak, when they, are simply just doing what they do. I see into people's souls, and you could see into this man's soul. He was a good person. Again, you're not always going to agree with their ideologies or everything they say, But at the end of the day, was this a good person? Was he out trying to harm other people? No, he was talking. He was bringing back socialism, or not socialism, shouldn't say that. He was bringing back our social standard to make conversations normal again, to not have to go to physical means. And that's what I loved about it. We are so ready to fight and go to physical means through, disagreements and basic disagreements. But that's what I loved about that man is he could have a conversation, an intellectual conversation, and at the end of the day, you could both part ways and be just fine. You have your belief, I have mine, but at the end of the day, we don't have to harm one another. It is how we are treating each other through our interaction that is the highest truth. And that's what we are forgetting. That's why the Democrat sees the 6 as a 9 and the Republican sees the 9 as a 6. And that's why one side is saying to the other, how the hell are you not seeing the truth? It's right in front of your face. And that's how the other side is saying the very same thing. You are the very same being, the same person, from a different lens, from a different vantage point. Yet you are blaming the other person, the other being at the other end of that vantage point, and you're telling them that their truth is not as valid or real or deep as yours. And of course you're going to run into conflict, because imagine someone tells you your reality, your perception is not real, is not valid, is not deep. You're not feeling it. Everyone is feeling just as deeply about their beliefs, about their reality, about their perception as the next. We feel with full conviction we are in search of or arriving at some form of truth. But there's a reason we are all colliding with each other in this word of truth. And it's because there is only one truth. It is through the mind that truth can become many different stories and many different ideologies and many different beliefs. But the way you return the mind back home to source is the heart. You don't need to think about how to be compassionate. You don't need to think about how to be patient. That is basic human functions. It's not something that we have to think about. The heart already knows the way. Yet we make it harder than it has to be by thinking about it. We're trying to see people for their labels, for their titles. Are you Democrat or Republican, blue or red? It doesn't matter, because the inevitability is it is you the whole time. Whether you're religious or spiritual, it does not matter. To be spiritual is to ground yourself in the I would say knowing that you are essentially God. God is not an entity. God is not a beingness. We are, through this body, we are the apparatus God uses to hear himself, hear herself, to see herself, see his self. We are the apparatus through this body that God is using to communicate with each other. And look at how we are communicating with each other. Look at what we have done. And we can't put all the blame on social media and outer influence. A lot of the outer is reflecting the inner. Our inner dialogue is what reflects our outer dialogue. Or I'm sorry, outer dialogue reflects our inner dialogue. So that's why when you look at these comment sections on social media, everyone's using these harsh, ugly, hateful words of judgment, of criticism, of just being nasty. Because we've socially been disconnected, and we're all chasing our own tail. We're all chasing something greater than ourselves, and we all want to arrive at it first. We all want to know something the next person doesn't. We all want our truth to be valid. We all want our perception to be the right one. But this is where we will collide with each other, because again, we're trying to bring an understanding through the spiritual sense of man-made laws and systems. But this cannot be done. The only way you can bring about a true revolution is by getting in tune with the true system, and that's the law of the cosmos. Once you fall in line, and it doesn't have to be everyone in the world, but the more people that fall in line with the law of the cosmos, with the law of the divine, the more you will witness things return back to harmony. Because again, you don't need to think about how to be divine. You are the divine in expression. This body is merely an apparatus we are using as God to experience ourselves, to see that we are not alone, to hear ourselves speak. Because without this body, there is nothing to be known. There is nothing to be heard. There is nothing to be seen. When you are God, when you die, or when you leave this body, you have no body. You have no name. You look around and you're a void. The absence of anything but the presence of everything. And when you embody this, there is nothing that can be known. No experience, no time, no place. This is where you understand, however, because you have touched the source of time. You have touched the source of all people. You have touched the source of all places, thus embodying the singularity. The singularity is an event which brings all people, places, and things back to the singular presence, which is the moment itself, no time, because time doesn't exist. We exist in this singular moment of one instantaneous expression, and it has no name. And that's just it. Scientists, physicists have been trying to find any trace of this thing we call God, and that's just it. All they can find is patterns, divine patterns which repeat throughout nature, divine codes which repeat throughout nature, yet there is no definitive image, because God has no image. God is not an entity in the sky or a person in the sky. You are what you are calling God, coming to life every single day. You've only conditioned and programmed yourself to tell yourself this is life, this is reality, you're in a world, you're a person. But deep down, you know. You weren't meant to work your life away, and there's something much deeper here that you have yet to uncover. And what that something is who you are. Indeed, you weren't meant to go to work day after day and never answer these deep questions that burn into your brain. We're meant to uncover the truth and the true nature of who we are, but it requires a bit of uncomfortability. It requires a bit of sacrifice. It requires a bit of loneliness. It requires a bit of surrenderance. The fight must come to an end, because ultimately, World War III, the test is within you. The battle does not take place in your city streets. The battle takes place in your mind. And the battle is happening right now in the minds of mankind as we speak. As you listen to this video, everyone is scrolling, 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 scrolling. Being that much more conditioned, programmed, susceptible to be programmed. Being told what reality is. Distracted from asking the real questions, prolonging the inevitability of who we are. And so long as we do this, we will never be free. Not in the sense we're looking for. Because there's two types of freedom. There's physical freedom. And then there's spiritual freedom. Spiritual freedom sets the soul on fire. Spiritual freedom sets you completely free. Even if you're locked in a prison, spiritual freedom sets you free. Just like Rumi says, why do you remain in prison when the door is so wide open? The prison is your mind. Likewise, the door is wide open because it's your mind the whole time. It's true, you can't let go of something that never existed. However, you have to go through the grieving process in death. It doesn't just happen all at once. You have to mistake it as real. You have to mistake it as you are actually dying, as you are actually coming to an end. So there is a mourning process. It isn't until you've mourned yourself, mourned your loved ones, mourned your family, that you're able to fully let go and release mentally, and then do you realize there was never anything to let go of. What you were seeking to be free of never was. And surprise, you're free all along. You've been home the whole time. You are the source. Source consciousness, baby. Unlimited potential. Why do we remain in prison when the door is so wide open? And that's another thing. In death, through spiritual death or physical death, it does not matter. But in death, your family and your loved ones are not the final chapter. That prepares you for the final moment, the final goodbye with you and yourself. See, when I experienced my death, my whole family stood in front of me in numerical order, and I watched them all disappear, symbolically dying, or fading into the wind, which represented them dying. And so one at a time, youngest to oldest, they all just disappeared into the wind, and I had to cry and mourn the loss of each and every one of them. And at the very end, I was a wreck. But then I realized I still haven't even reached the hardest part yet in death. That was only preparing you for the final frontier. That was only preparing you for the final chapter. You've said goodbye to all your loved ones, to your family. Now it's time to close the book on Tyler, on who you think you are. And the reason your family comes first is because who you think you are exists in tiny pieces with each and every one of them. Father, sister, mother, brother, aunt, uncle. You exist in pieces through each of these interactions. And so one at a time, pieces of your veil are being removed. And it isn't until all of those exterior pieces are removed that you're left with nothing but the interior. And at last you can part ways with what you thought was yourself. You can realize that which never was. And this is where you will understand. If I am not dying as Tyler, then Tyler was never actually born. Because if you cannot end, you cannot begin. And that's when you laugh because you realize death is not real. It was an illusion, just as what you thought to be your birth, your beginning, your origin was an illusion. Because once you touch the source, you have touched infinity, and you break through the mind's order of sequential time. It is the mind that tells ourselves things have to exist in a sequence. Things have to exist in a beginning and an end. Because we identify ourselves with beginning and end. But never do these two places exist but the mind. And that's why a spiritual death is beautiful. It's life-changing. But it doesn't sound very, very decorative, which is why you don't see more people serious about spirituality. Spirituality has turned mainstream. You're offered and shown various practices, various chants, various things to do, which will leave you feeling the same as which you entered. Or might bring about a change for a day, or 2 days, or 3 days, but you don't stay the course. Inevitably, you slip back into your old ways, and you're left feeling the same as when you entered. Because this is not spirituality, it's a vicious loop with your ego. And that's why it's gone mainstream, commercialized. Spirituality is about dying before physically departing the body, so that you can see once and for all you are God, using this body as an apparatus to view something which you could never view otherwise. And I know we say, well, God's all powerful, God's everything, God's this, God can see anything, or God can do anything. Indeed, it can. Indeed, you can. But again, when you embody what you think to be God, there is no time, there is no place. All these places you have in your mind that are separate instantaneously merge or converge into that presence. And that's why they say God is everywhere, God is everything, God sees everything. Because all those places that were witnessed are simply that one presence. All those people were one presence. All those times and different, lifetimes were all one presence. And that is how we find ourselves home. No matter the timeline, no matter the place, no matter the person. That is why when you know, you know. And you can never fool yourself. But the best gift we can give to the world is knowing who we are to our core. And the reason people don't take it more serious is because they don't know where to start. You tell someone to look within, they roll their eyes because where do I start? How do I look within? What does that mean? So we feel frustrated. And eventually we give up. Look within. That sounds stupid. That's going to solve nothing. You're seeing the world in the utmost chaos with the absence of love anywhere to be found, and you're telling me to look within, as if that's going to change anyone's state of mind. So I get it. When you hear someone say, look within, you have the answer. It can seem frustrating. It can seem pointless. But I assure you, that's because you think you know who you are. But deep down, you've never met yourself. You've never met yourself until you have fully died. That's why the saying goes, when you know, you know. So for people who ask me, how are you so sure about what you talk about in your videos? Because I have died. I have embodied death. I have embodied God. So when you know, you know. That's how I'm so sure. And you'll notice there's nothing that needs to be done to connect to this source. I don't need to charge my pineal gland, or hold a crystal over my heart to speak or to channel this stuff. It's always here. It's always with me. I can pour a big cup of tap water, drink the whole thing, because some people will say tap water calcifies your pineal gland. I'll drink the whole thing of tap water and still speak from source. Source is within you, and it can never be taken from you. You are source. This is what Jesus' message was. He laughed at these people. You can strike my body, you can whip my flesh, but this is a joke, because you will never penetrate into my soul. That man knew who he was so deeply, he knew not to fight these people. Instead, he did something the world never saw before. Again, Jesus did this in the time where there was no love. Love was absent. Love was lost. And here you have a man being tortured in front of a whole town of people. And what he did was showed them unconditional love. Absolutely confused the entire city. Left them speechless, mind blown. How the hell did they torture this man? And in turn, he paid them back with unconditional love. That's enough to break any man's soul. One thing people don't think about is we hear about the impact Jesus had on people. What about the people who did the torturing? How do you think they felt? They did all this to this man and he loved them anyway. Again, that's enough to confuse anyone, because it's something you have never seen before. It's unheard of. And that's why religions are not the message. Religions are the byproduct of these messiahs, of these awakened men, of these messengers. Religion is the byproduct of their story, commercialized or taken, and put into a story. But all they were doing was showing the world unconditional love when it was most absent.